Hello, Midlife Mavens. It's your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and alignment coach, here to help you use human design to shed others' expectations and be who you came here to be. Today's episode is the second part of 3, where we're going to explore the ubiquitous phrase, I'm fine or it's fine. And today we're actually looking at the connection between the throat and the sacral centers. And I'm going to explore how to tell if one of those is blocked and also how to free yourself from any blockages. And of course, I'm also tying it into perimenopause symptoms and this midlife phase because after all, this is Midlife by Design. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful Midlife Mavens, and welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today, we are continuing our conversation about the tendency for women to say, it's fine, or I'm fine, when we're actually not. And this part of this very short series is going to kind of explore the connection between our womb and our voice. And what I've learned in researching this episode is fascinating, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So let's dive in. Have you ever experienced, I'm sure you have, getting a lump in your throat, for example, when you are holding back tears or holding back some sort of intense emotion? Or have you ever noticed your stomach getting upset or like a little bit of a bellyache or crampiness or just this feeling of like blah, not good when you are trying to tamp down an emotion? What's really interesting is how connected these two things are. And of course, everything is connected in our bodies. Everything is connected, period, right? We've talked about that idea. And what I have found in looking into the connection physically between the womb and the voice is that there is actually an anatomical connection, which is traced to the vagus nerve, which I know I've also at least mentioned on the pod before, because the vagus nerve is exactly what puts us in that fight or flight kind of state, basically. And it's our longest cranial nerve, and it extends from the brainstem down through the neck and into the abdomen. And what's really interesting is while I was looking into this and researching, I discovered that when we're in utero and we're just like the tiniest little collection of cells, the very first things that start to develop are these depressions that eventually become our mouth and our pelvis. And these two depressions form in this cell, and then the spine connects them. So, like, literally, from the very beginnings of who we become as human beings, connection between our pelvis, our womb, and our mouth, how we speak our truth, is connected physically. So the cranial nerve plays this crucial role in transmitting sensory information between the uterus and the brainstem. And so there's this direct communication pathway I just found fascinating. Like I said, everything is connected, right? It's like when I'm running and my IT band gets tight, it's because my psoas is tight, which is not like near my IT band, but it's as soon as, Kathy, shout out to you if you're listening to this, as soon as she digs that shit out, it's like my leg is so much better. So this is just another example of how we are connected. So I also wanted to, of course, look at this connection through the lens of human design. So we've got the throat center and the sacral center, the centers of expression, and creation, respectively, there. So in human design, the throat center is the center for manifestation. It's the center for communication. It's where we bring energy into form. And we take inspiration or, thoughts and ideas, and we turn them into words and action and impact. And then the sacral center, on the other hand, is the seat for creativity. That's where our life force energy lives and our vitality and that Energizer Bunny battery that's going, which gives us fuel to build and create and sustain. And so those two things being deeply connected is where we can get in trouble if one has a block, right? Or if both of them have a block. They affect one another if there is a block in either your throat or your sacral or both. And so if you are suppressing your true voice, then your creative energy could be stifled as a result of that, and it can lead you to burnout. It can lead you to malaise that I've talked about before. It can lead you to this numbness, which I think a lot of midlife women experience. And then by contrast, if you're not honoring your body's natural creative cycles, we're talking about the womb here, then it could potentially be difficult to manifest things because you're having trouble expressing yourself clearly, or you're over explaining, or you're feeling unheard because, again, you're not honoring that creative cycle. The cycle, kind of the cycle of life that plays out month to month with women as we shed the uterine lining. And if you're no longer having cycles or you're having irregular cycles, then it's really about tapping into what does that new cycle look like for you? And you being really aware of where you are energetically in that cycle, because just because you've stopped bleeding doesn't mean that your body still isn't experiencing cycles. And I think that's one of the challenges for midlife women, is making that transition and understanding. And I would just point to the cycles of the moon as a potential way to ground yourself in how your body may be responding in that cyclical nature. So I want to touch on the sacral authority here, because there's so much power in the response that sacral authorities have, and or anybody with a sacral. So if you're an emotional generator or manifesting generator, then this goes for you too. I want to speak to the incredible power that your sacral has with those gut sounds as your most natural form of truth speaking. So what can happen when we're kids, when we're young, and I've talked about this a bit before on the Authority Pod, is that those responses can get conditioned out of us because they are deemed as rude or unacceptable by parent figures or by elders, as not being a complete word or not being a complete sentence. They want you to say yes please instead of for example. So just thinking about when that may have happened for you and how that may have conditioned you to silence those very natural responses. Because literally, those sounds are your gut just speaking right out your throat. It's like right up and out your throat. And it's such a beautiful, natural way of communicating for people who have that sacral energy. So I wanted to invite you, if you are a sacral being, to practice becoming more comfortable with those sounds. And they don't even have to be or They could be a nod or a shake of your head. They could be a moving in or moving away from. That's another way that your sacral speaks. It could be, other kind of fun or funky sounds that come out of your mouth, like ew or ooh. Those types of things are your sacral speaking as well. And as much as you can not default to this polite, more conditioned way of speaking, like I'm fine, and go with your body's real truth, then you're really allowing your sacral to be heard and you're building a stronger connection between your sacral and your throat. So, if your sacral center is defined, but your throat is blocked in some way, then you might struggle to express your true desires. You might have a hard time actually saying what you want or what your needs are. You might have a hard time establishing boundaries and just being comfortable with saying, nope, this is not okay, or this isn't going to work for me right now. And ultimately, that leads you to feeling unfulfilled and misunderstood, which totally sucks and is not where we want you to be. So this is just, it's always about building awareness. And so I hope that as we're going through these pieces of connection between the sacral and the throat, that you are able to hear these things without self-judgment. And it's just helping you to build your awareness to say, oh, okay, well, if I'm having a hard time kind of identifying what I want these days, then maybe there's a throat blockage going on. And I'm going to talk a little bit later in the pod about some of the practical things that you can do to help yourself to unblock these things. So if your sacral center is undefined, so projectors, reflectors, or manifestors, then you might be absorbing and amplifying other people's creative energy, and it might be leading you to speak in ways that's like what you want other people to hear rather than what is true for you, because you're absorbing that creative energy, right? And remember that since that creative energy is directly connected to your throat, then it could be that what's coming out of your mouth is actually a reflection of somebody else's creative energy. So just something to be aware of, right? Let's talk about the throat center. So with your throat center, there can be a fear of speaking your truth, especially for open or undefined throat centers. So the thing that can happen with open and undefined throat centers is there's this pressure to say the right thing or speak in the right way, or even just this fear that what you're saying is not being heard. It's not landing. It's not, it's not being heard. And so what can happen for you is you can just suppress your emotions or because you feel like they're not going to be heard anyway. Or you can say what you think other people need to hear or what they want to hear, which is, again, conditioning. And then there can also be this overcompensation by talking too much. It's like you kind of go off the deep end just to fill the silence because you so desire to be heard. So when this suppression of the throat is paired with blocked sacral energy, then it can create this cycle of disconnect where you're disconnected between what you feel and what you're expressing. And then that can really make it hard to access your creativity and your power and your ability to manifest. So I want to talk about two types as examples. So let's talk about manifestors and the throat and the womb. So manifestors, by definition, what makes a manifestor is that they're going to have a direct connection between their throat, so will always be defined if you're a manifestor, and a motor center, which could be your emotional solar plexus. It could be your ego center, or it could be your root center. Historically, female manifestors have been conditioned to quiet their initiating energy. And honestly, this goes for all women, right? Like any woman has been conditioned to be the good girl, to follow along like, a nice little lovely lady. And ultimately, what that means, though, is suppressing your voice and your creative energy. And society just delivers this message in subtle ways and not so subtle ways over and over and over again. And what can happen for manifestors, especially because they're so fucking powerful, is this blocked throat, whatever motor is connected to. It can it can be that they are having a hard time expressing their emotions if it's connected to their emotional solar plexus. It can be that they're having a hard time expressing their true desires if it's connected to their ego. It could be that they're having a hard time expressing the pressure that they're under if it's connected to their root. And it can manifest in this like tendency to wait for permission or wait to be invited in to share their genius rather than just trusting themselves. And this sucks, honestly, because manifestors, like I said, are so powerful. You're only 9% of the population, and you're here to initiate. So when you are dealing with a blocked throat chakra, which is one of the gifts that you're here to express in the world, then that's definitely something that needs attention, that needs to be cleared out for you, that needs just some work, some healing to help free you so that you can share your beautiful genius with the world. And I wanted to talk briefly about projectors in terms of honoring your cyclical nature. So, projectors do not have that sacral energy either, right? And so, projectors are absorbing and guiding the energy of others. And what can happen with projectors if they are not invited to express their truth, then they may hold it in, and that can be a real challenge for that throat chakra because they know they have that piercing aura that can see and it just wants to be seen and recognized. And so, if you know a projector, as much as you can invite them to share their truth, that is such a gift for them because that in and of itself helped to build a beautiful relationship, a beautiful flow in their throat. Okay, let's talk briefly about why this womb throat connection is so important to reflect on, especially during perimenopause and this midlife phase that we're in. So, midlife, as we've talked about, is this initiation. It's this opportunity for us to redefine who we are. If we've had children, they are getting older, they are less dependent on us. And so we have this opportunity to move into this next phase of who are we, not as maidens, not as mothers, but as wild women, right? Who are we in this phase? And it's an opportunity for us to step into our creative power, step into our truth, capital T truth. And what's crazy, and maybe not a coincidence, is that midlife women going through perimenopause are also experiencing so very many, what's the list, like 88 or something? So very many physical, emotional, energetic symptoms of perimenopause, and they often just feel fucking overwhelmed. So, what if some of the symptoms aren't just biological changes? What if they're not just rooted in the transition from having a menstrual cycle to no longer having a menstrual cycle? But what if they're also tied to the consequences of how many years you've been suppressing your truth? What if the symptoms that you are experiencing in the perimenopause transition are directly correlated to the consequences of years of suppressing your truth. I felt like that needed to be restated. So let's talk about it. When we are denying our voice, when we're holding back our emotions, when we are feeling disconnected from our creative power, when we are not speaking our truth, all of those things, any kind of suppression that feels like it needs to be said, it just gets stored in your body. And the womb and the throat, the sacral center and the throat, those are two of our biggest storage centers for unprocessed emotions. Like your throat, that manifestation center, the center for speaking your truth. And then that creation, that battery power, that fuel, that life force energy. Those two centers are places where we can really hold a lot of suppressed energy. And so I went kind of on a deep dive here and looked for what are some of the perimenopause symptoms that can come up as a direct result of, tamping shit down, of not speaking your truth. And these are some of the things that I found. So the first was irregular or heavy periods. And this is apparently related to anger, grief, and frustration being repressed. And those emotions directly impacting your cycle, your womb's natural rhythm. And I'm curious if you can reflect on your life and if you've had any, maybe if you've experienced a trauma of any kind and thinking about how did that affect your cycle? And did it disrupt? It can be things like even severely limiting your calorie intake or, severe changes to your diet and putting your body through trauma like that can interrupt your periods and how they come. And so I know that, of course, as our bodies age and we get into perimenopause, the estrogen and the progesterone go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down through each month, but gradually are on a decline. And then they really start to drop rapidly. And of course, that is the kind of physiological explanation for why you may be having irregular or heavy periods. And this, what I'm talking about now, is the more emotional side of it. What might be happening that you need to explore a little bit, where your irregular periods are a direct result of some emotions that you haven't been processing. Where in your life are you feeling anger or grief or frustration or any not self themes? Where are you feeling those things and how might you work through them? How might you process them? The first step is always awareness and then getting curious about, okay, how then can I work with this emotion now that I know it? The first step after awareness will be to allow yourself to feel it. Just feel it, feel through it, and let it go. So another kind of physical symptom that can be a symptom of suppression, essentially, is thyroid issues. So things like hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. This is the throat is where we express ourselves, right? And if you are habitually silencing yourself, if you are cutting yourself off at the knees before you even have a chance to speak, if you're just staying quiet instead of speaking your truth, then that thyroid, which is the gland that regulates energy and metabolism, that could potentially be taking a hit. I know personally a few women who have been diagnosed with thyroid imbalances. And if this is you, then it could be an invitation for you to see where you've been prioritizing others over yourself and how has that left you feeling? Where can you start prioritizing yourself? And where can you start speaking your truth where maybe you've kept it quiet? Okay, the next physical symptom that I want to talk about that many, many midlife women experience, and it's often, I don't know, I feel like it's the harbinger for a lot of women of perimenopause coming on, which is hot flashes and night sweats. And yes, of course, they're rooted in hormonal shifts. That is part of it. However, one of the things I've mentioned before on the pod is using these hot flashes to say verbally, I'm burning away what no longer serves me. Because hot flashes can be your body's way of expelling repressed emotions. It's literally burning away what's no longer serving you. So, the more that you're fighting to suppress emotions, the more that you've been tamping your emotions down, the more intense those hot flashes can be. So if you've been having a period of hot flashes where they've been pretty intense lately, for example, then you can get curious, okay, where have I not been allowing myself to feel through some emotions? Where have I been tamping them down? Okay, and I'm going to talk about one more, which is insomnia. And so many midlife women have that 2 a.m., 3 a.m. wake up, right? And they have a hard time getting back to sleep because it's all these random thoughts that come into your mind and you're just like on repeat. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to get curious about where might we be speaking from misalignment because you're saying what is expected of you or you're being the parrot kind of saying what you think somebody needs to hear but it's not actually what's real for you because this kind of thing can be exhausting and so in midlife, we get this like freaking energy drain because you've spent this lifetime, or maybe it's even just recently that you've been doing this a lot and you're ignoring your body's cues. And then you get this cortisol spike in the middle of the night. And it's like that's fight or flight thing again, where you wake up and it's I mean, I think it's an invitation to wake up to what have you been suppressing? What needs to be expressed? What needs to be cleared out? And at the time of this recording, we are in the eclipse portal, and there ain't no better time to be clearing out than right now. So I invite you to do that, and we'll talk a little bit more here about some other things that you can do. But I just want to touch on the idea that this is really a time when we are invited to reclaim our power. We are invited to stop being the good girl, step into the wild woman, fuck keeping the peace, fuck holding our tongues, fuck putting others first. No, it doesn't make us selfish. It's okay not to put other people before you. So that whole oxygen mask on the plane thing, right? Take care of yourself, fill your cup so that then you can be the best version of yourself to show up for the others in your life. So if you've been saying, I'm fine, or it's fine, check yourself when you say that. Ask yourself if you're actually telling the truth in that moment. Is it really fine? Is it fine? Because when you say it's fine and it's really not fine, your body's keeping the score. Remember, that's blocking your throat chakra. That's blocking your sacral chakra center. Midlife is a time when we decide to stop shrinking and we step into our creative power. We step into what we have to offer from all of the wisdom that we have built, that we have learned, that we have earned, hard earned over many, many years. And it's an opportunity here to reconnect the throat center and the sacral center by stopping with the filter, by stopping suppressing our emotions, our words, our desires, and just say what's true for us. So I want you to consider, what if all of the perimenopause symptoms that you happen to be experiencing are not just physical, but they're actually your body's way of demanding that you need to like stop suppressing and start expressing. This is your invitation. So anytime you're having a perimenopause symptom, this is an invitation for you to first become aware. Okay, oh, look at that. I'm having a hot flash. What does that mean? What was Lori talking about? Where is this an invitation to burn away what's no longer serving me? Just as an example. Okay, so 5-line coming in here for you with some things that you can do. I've talked about the awareness piece, and I don't think that that can be overstated. It's always about awareness because you can't fix a problem if you're not aware of it. So understanding that, oh, here's something that I need to become aware of. Here's something that needs to be aligned, more in check. Okay, awareness. Another thing that you can do is work with your breath. So you might choose to do a breathwork session, but thinking about how you can use breathwork to activate your vagus nerve in particular. So specific like diaphragmatic breathing, you can find all kinds of videos on YouTube. I think breathwork is done best with a practitioner who is trained, especially if it's your first time. But even if not, it's just that breathwork can be super, super powerful in clearing, in healing. And I also think that it's important to have somebody available in case you're struggling to get through it. Because your body can do freaky shit that you didn't really expect during a breathwork session. And I think it's important to have other humans around you to just help ground you and be available if something comes up. So, however, I do think that breathwork can be so powerful in helping to connect the throat and the womb or sacral center. So, if there's a breathwork class near you, and you're feeling like you are blocked or could use some help in these areas, then highly recommend that you check it out. Another really simple thing that you can do, and you can do this pretty much anywhere and at any time throughout the day, is just humming or chanting or singing. It's like getting vibration in your throat. It releases tension. It's so good for the vagus nerve. Think of it as a massage for your vagus nerve. And so when you can do that, you are really helping that connection, helping soothe it, helping to just express some of that energy, that emotion. Remember, emotion is just energy in motion. So I don't always want you to think of emotion as like, oh, well, Lori's telling me to cry all the time. Well, sure, if you need to cry, then cry. But you can also release emotional energy by things like this, like the humming or chanting or singing. It's such a great way to do that. And listen, sing loud in the car. You're helping your body to process this emotion that needs to come out and help to connect your throat and your sacral. Another thing you can do is, of course, journaling. And I would encourage you to journal on, what are you not saying? What are you holding back? What are your unspoken truths? And if you're afraid that somebody's going to read it, then just write it and burn it. Write and burn is a beautiful ritual that you can do for yourself. So, what desires have you been suppressing? Maybe it's a desire, maybe it's anger, maybe it's something that you've been thinking about for a long time that you just want to be able to talk about, and maybe you're not ready to talk to a person, and so you write in your journal. And again, you can burn it if you want or not, but at least you're releasing it. Another thing that I love to do is moving your hips and your jaw. So, the actual physical parts of your body. We used to do exercises for warming up before a show where you're just like, ah, 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 you hold on to if you're on YouTube and you're watching me, you can see what I'm doing. But if you're listening, then I'm rubbing the hinge between my jaw and my cheekbones, and you can make all kinds of funny sounds. Those are great ways to loosen up your jaw and your vocal cords. And then your hips. I love happy baby pose for releasing my hips, laying on the ground and grabbing your big toes with your hands and just sort of holding your legs with your knees bent in what looks like a happy baby, and then rolling side to side. Those can be really beautiful ways to move your hips. Hey, listen, if you know how to twerk, twerk it out, twerk it out. That is a great way to move your hips as well. Of course, hip circles, or just put on some great music and dance as long as you're moving your hips. Those are wonderful ways to, again, release any stored tension and any emotion that needs to travel through you. So, those are a few different ways to process things that you may be suppressing and help to unblock your throat and your sacral. And if this conversation today has been hitting home and you're realizing like how much you've actually been suppressing emotion or how much you haven't been speaking your truth, then I want to invite you to the Costa Rica retreat, because this opportunity is going to be so incredibly powerful. The thing that you don't necessarily think about when you're thinking about a retreat is the time and space you have to be in your own energy. And then when you're with others who are on the same journey that you are. And that is one of the perimenopause journey with the physical symptoms, the journey of midlife and redefining yourself, the journey of figuring out what is your next step. Who are you in this new phase? And this is an opportunity, this beautiful retreat that we have created for you, where you don't have to filter anything that drops into your mind. You can speak your truth without judgment. It's a space where you can move and breathe and reconnect with your body and your voice in the most freeing and supportive environment literally possible. It's the kind of opportunity and experience that is percent quantum leap energy. These are the kind of opportunities that change your timeline. The idea of there being infinite possibilities at any one moment moving forward in the future. And those possibilities all become truth, all become your reality based on what you expect and based on your actions. And this opportunity can provide a complete timeline shift where you may be riding on this current timeline, and maybe it's not the timeline you want to be on. Maybe it's a timeline that doesn't feel like you, that you've been feeling like you've been suppressing your truth too much. And going to a retreat where you have the opportunity to practice speaking your truth on the regular, to practice being in your own energy and understanding what it feels like, having it reflected back to you, having it deeply accepted and respected. That's the kind of thing that puts you on a new timeline, because it's the emotions behind it. And everything is energy. So when you are coming in with your deep truth and you're expressing it, then the universe is just like, hell yeah, that girl's on this timeline now. She's not on the timeline that's telling her that she can't do or she can't be whatever the fuck she wants to be. She's on this one. It's the reclamation timeline. She's on this journey. And this is where she gets to be because she fucking trusted herself. So the retreat is March 29th to April 3rd, and that is coming right up. Our ability to accept any new people closes on March 21st, which is this Friday. So if this retreat has been calling to you and you've been telling yourself, no, you can't do it for XYZ, and listen, I have heard every reason under the sun, and I've also seen the women in this container taking action, even though they've had every reason under the sun to say no, they still said yes. So it's a matter of perspective. Check your reasoning. If this retreat is still calling to you, then it's time to book it. The link will be in the show notes. Of course, you can reach out to me anytime if you have questions. Reach out and send a DM on Instagram or send us an email through the website Soul Synergy, and we will get back to you to answer any questions. So just to recap, the throat and the sacral center are intricately connected, both physically and energetically. And the practices that I gave you are ways that you can heal and reclaim your authentic self-expression, your truth, your ability to both tap into it and express it. So reflect on your own experiences. Does it feel like your sacral or your throat is blocked? Does it feel like you have experienced that kind of energy where it's difficult to express what you're feeling, or you're tamping down your emotions and, it's giving you an upset stomach? Then use some of the practices that I gave you to start releasing that shit. And in the next episode, the third part of this It's Fine, I'm Fine series, we're going to take a look at the throat gates, the specific gates in the throat that will help you to reclaim that authentic voice as it is specifically and authentically unique to you and your energy. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now. If you are looking for a sacred sisterhood and an absolutely stunning environment in which to practice unblocking your throat and your sacral, then it's time to book your spot for the Wild Woman by Design retreat, which is also called the Midlife by Design retreat. If you're confused, it's the same thing. But hey, we are inviting you to book your spot. We still have a few left, and we would love, love, love to have you on this journey with us. We start on March 29th, so no time to waste. Book your spot today. Link is in the show notes, and then book your plane ticket, and we will see you in real life. And as always, if you loved this episode, please share it with somebody and hit that follow button and or that subscribe button wherever you are tuning in. And I am sending you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, especially during this eclipse portal season. The joy to fill your days and the clarity to be who you came here to be.